Beautification and Public Arts Commission meeting. First, we will conduct roll call. J. Michael Cruz. Excuse. Claire Edelman Heath.
Present.
Claire Johnson.
Present.
Carla McCord, I'm present. Matt McGrath. Excused. Chris Farrell.
Here.
And I was holding off on Anthony, but Anthony Garcia, I believe, is on the way. He is not currently present. Item C, reminder to please look at flagstaff365.com for upcoming events in music, culture, art, and sciences. Item number 2 within item C, the first concert for the Flagstaff Symphony Orchestra is Friday, September 29th at 7:30 p.m. at RD Auditorium on the NAU campus. Please contact Chair Cruz if you have interested tickets. Item number 3 within the upcoming events, please bring your lunch to Buffalo Park on Wednesday, September 13th, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Celebrate the grant-funded upgrades for the pros staff and experience in reconstructed 2-mile loops, 6 universal equipment stations, 4 ADA parking spaces, all connected with accessible walkway and entrance to the park.
And I will just add, commissioners, that was once going to be our project, and it was later in the fiscal year cycle for us, and pros went ahead and got different grant funding and went ahead and completed that part of the project. There's still a water tower in our future, but they went ahead. So this was kind of partially our project, which is why they invited us.
Okay. And note that Commissioner Garcia is joining the meeting. Thank you. Item D, is there any public participation today?
No, we received none.
And item E, approval of the minutes from August. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion. Seconded.
Great, thank you. Are there any comments? Hearing no comments, vote to approve. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Commissioners online, are you in favor of approving the minutes?
Yes, I am.
Can we get an aye or a yes?
Aye.
And Commissioner Edelman Heath, did you respond?
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you. With the approval of the minutes, we'll move on to item F, announcements. Are there any staff announcements?
No, no staff announcements tonight.
Okay. I have no announcements, and the chair is not here, so there are no chair or vice chair announcements. Are there any other commissioner announcements? Hearing none, we'll move on to item G, action items, and there are none. So then we'll move on to item H, discussion items, and this should be interesting. So item number 1, the wedge. Julie Mead, the principal of Peak Engineering, and Edward Schenk, is that correct? Section director are here to speak to us about the wedge, and I'll let you guys go from there.
Please join us at the head of the table.
And we will listen to the presentation, ask questions, and give comments. This is not a voting item.
Thank you, commissioners. I'll kick off the first couple slides, and then Julie will take over. So Ed Schenk, Stormwater Section Director here at City Flagstaff, and Julie Lead with Peak Engineering. Just going to talk about one of our projects on the Spruce Wash set of flood mitigation improvements. These were funded by Proposition 441 by the voters last year at roughly $26 million. And one particular project of the, what we got now, 9 projects? Keep changing the numbers. One of the 9 projects is what we call the Spruce Wash Detention Basin. So we have an opportunity here for arts and beautification, and I really appreciate your time here to kind of open this up. We think this is mostly informational right now, but kind of get the ball rolling, if you will, on potential moving on from there. So as I mentioned briefly, we have 9 projects now, 10 if you include the county flood control project on the Parkway Basins. So 10 projects within Spruce Wash. This is in the Sunnyside and Grandview neighborhoods on the east side of Flagstaff for providing that flood mitigation due to the 2019 museum fire. So it starts at Paradise Road and kind of follows the wash down to Killip School. And that's the area that we are mostly working on in terms of providing our flood mitigation for those neighborhoods. And the one that's kind of an outlier, if you will, is what we call the wedge detention basin. That's that number 2 that you see there near Safeway, the Cedar Safeway. And it's an outlier because it is an off-line detention basin, which means that it's not in line with the rest of the channel. So everything else other than Grandview is in line with the channel. Grandview is a little bit wonky as well. That's reconstructing the street to allow the water to stay in the street and not spill out. And the wedge is an offline detention basin. So essentially, whatever overflow we have that the channel cannot convey and that Grandview cannot convey without flooding people will be pushed to the wedge as a detention basin. It will fill that basin like a pond, and then in 36 hours, that pond will drain back into the stormwater system and back into the wash. Let's see here. Okay. Is this your slide or my slide? My slide. Okay, go. Oh, there's animation in it? Okay. Oh, well, okay, there you go. So that's a very, very generic view of where that's at. So again, starting at Linda Vista, which is where that overflow would be, it'd go in a pipe underground down to that wedge area. And again, this is a very simplified graphic of that. And with that, I will hand it over to Julie to get into the nuts and bolts of what we're talking about here.
Yeah. So as far as schedule is concerned, it's pretty amazing that voters approved this in November. And here we are today, and we are at concept, we're past concept level design. Design for all of those projects that you saw should be complete before the end of the year. That is the goal. And then the contractor that's been selected to do this work is going to start picking off those projects in a strategic and particular order related to flood control. So where we are today, we've got our eyes on the next design deliverable in October, finishing up before the holiday, Christmas, New Year holiday. And then construction is starting on those channels in Grandview, and that's going to take a couple of years. The basin construction that Ed showed you, that's probably 2024, 2025. So when we're talking about opportunities for beautification, a couple of things. First thing, we're really early in design still, and there's time. And there's time to see what opportunity might be presented with this project. All right. So this basin is about 15 acre-feet is what we need for storage volume. It's going to be a pretty deep basin. For comparison, if you've been by Killip School, there are a couple of basins at Killip School that are shared facilities. So it's going to be fields and basins. Those are about half the size of what we need to put in here at this particular location. We started out, this is hot off the press actually. We started out with a very engineered rectangular shape basin. Councilmember Sweet probably remembers that very angular, perfectly angular basin. And we've been kind of softening it and really working around the resources. So resources being trees out there. There's some really lovely, I guess you can't see my cursor. There's some really lovely oaks and ponderosas. They're at the very corner, at the tip of the wedge there, the bottom right corner, west and cedar. Thank you. And so we've actually pulled back our design a little bit so we can keep that buffer. And we're trying to keep a tree buffer as well on cedar. And we've just kind of been adjusting this basin and field fitting so that it's still going to be a big hole in the ground. We're trying to make the most of it here. And this is definitely where you come in. So just for reference, there's a section of this basin. Let's have a laser pointer.
It does, it won't show up on an LCD screen though.
Oh.
Great. Okay, you see where my red arrow is?
Mm-hmm.
And there's kind of a backwards L shape that's in pink line work. That is all retaining wall. And then the rest of it It almost looks like an ear to me. So the top part of the ear is graded to match, whereas the lobe of the ear is where we're planning on retaining wall. So we have a few hundred feet of retaining wall that will be about 15 feet tall on the inside. If you were standing in the detention basin looking up at the deepest point, you'd see about 15 feet of wall. If you are standing on West Street or you are on Cedar, you'd probably only see the top 3 feet of that wall, maybe more, but at least, 3 feet. All right, so here's a pano. If you've driven by recently, the contractor has cleared a general footprint for where this basin is located. And where you see that green fence, there's a driveway opening in the fence. To the left of that driveway opening, that green fencing, that's about where that retaining wall is going to be. So you can imagine yourself standing here in front of Cedar Safeway on the sidewalk, looking at that, and that would be, for the most part, that location would be a retaining wall. And it would be, like I said, 3 to 6 feet tall or taller at that location. So it's not right at the back of the sidewalk, but it is very visible for folks on West. Bit of a delay on the clicker. All right. So here's just another view. What I'm really trying to do is give you a sense of the potential here and create a vision for what the opportunity is, where that wall is located. So again, that wall would be about where that green fence is. The arrow on the left kind of indicates my view when I took that photo. Now at this point, you're looking at the corner, and this is the corner where we are looking to maintain that buffer. Those large ponderosa pine that you see, there's an oak thicket as well. We intend to keep that in place to the greatest extent possible. We're still, again, approaching 60% design, but that is the goal.
So the retention wall behind that would probably be buffered, you probably won't see it.
You probably wouldn't see it. Maybe in the winter, when the leaves are dropped on the oaks, you might be able to see it, but you definitely have to look pretty hard. And this is what that corner looks like. And the reason I wanted to share this, we've got this beautiful buffer, but we have this sort of crumbling retaining wall there at the corner. And this isn't part of our project, but this is part of the parcel. And so if there's an opportunity here with the wall that we're doing in this project, maybe there's a way to look at some beautification or something there at that corner to create that sense of place. I think this is the last part. Yep, this is last. But what I would like to do next, that kind of gives you an idea of the footprint and the scale. I want to give you a sense of the type of wall. So we are looking at a cast-in-place wall. So this is, they install formwork, they do footings, and then they pour that wall in place. And like I said, at the highest point, it'll be 15 feet on the outside, and you'll see a few feet on the other side. Part of construction of that wall is that there will be form liner. So similar to, I think, what you have looked at and talked about with the Lone Tree Overpass project, form liner is a way to create texture or something on the wall surface itself. It's really important for graffiti, but it's also an opportunity to make it look pretty nice. So here's some examples of form liner work that you could do on a concrete wall. We're planning on, this one's really elaborate, a 2-inch form liner. So it's a relief, I guess, as part of the form. So when you cast the concrete against it, it picks up that shape and creates that texture.
One question, you mentioned graffiti and form liner. How does it prevent?
So my understanding is that when you have the relief on it, people don't like to graffiti because it's harder to do and you don't get the clean lines and you don't get the intended outcome of the graffiti because there's texture on the wall. And I know that there's graffiti treatment as well. And actually, you might know more about this because of the Lone Tree work that you're doing. Anyway, these are just some ideas, thoughts. That's the extent of presentation here. And I think, Jana, you might have some
Right,
things
I
to
had a
add.
couple of extra slides. Can you pull up the end of the other presentation, Craig?
The one we just did?
Yeah, it's the one we just did, but I think the one that I sent you or shared with you had some different slides at the end. Yeah, go to the question mark. Here we go. Right, so what do we do with the poor in place? Well, I think you gave some wonderful examples. Oops. But we could also do something as simple as a mural. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Thank you. We've only got a couple. So we could, and this mural actually is done with vinyl, so you can do it with vinyl or you could do it with paint. So it's about 150 feet. It is not as long as the airport wall, the fence. So that airport fence is 280 feet. Just so that to give you kind of some perspective from a project that we've already done. So it's less than that. So we could do a community mural, something that tells something about the neighborhood. There's a lot of different content that we could put in that. And then go ahead and go to the next one. And then also something instead of just straight form liners. We could do form liners with sculptural relief on them. And, so we can again, do the different color concrete. The more elaborate you get with your form liners, the more expensive it is. I was like, this is what costs. The murals are inexpensive. This is, getting elaborate form liners, something really unique rather than just a pattern. Will, cost some money. Custom form liners do. We've run into that on Lone Tree. But, we can do this combination. Go ahead and go to the next one, which is another example. Again, that actually is a pretty elaborate form liner because every panel is distinct and different. And then, they put the kind of sculptural, fish on top. But there's kind of something nice about a sculptural element along with the form liners that gives more of a story and more of a flow to a piece. So, we have many possibilities here. Even though we have plenty of time because they can design the wall, we can ask for it to be a uniform height, and we could ask for like a solid 4 feet or 5 feet, because if 3 feet is just too low, it wouldn't have impact. We can ask for that. We have to ask for that soon. But the form liners can be something after they complete their quote 100% engineering designs. That's what their design is. We can do the form liners later. But if we're going to do expensive form liners, we probably have to start that call to artists at the beginning of the next fiscal year, July 2024. If we're going to go something like a mural, then we can probably do that call to artists, maybe 5-6 months later. It's a lot less process to get to a design if we do a mural than if we do form liners. So I want you guys to ask all your questions and things. This will be something that we'll be taking up at our BPAC retreat because it still would be in FY25. And as you know, we have a lot of projects that have, some demand on them. But I think we have prioritized Sunnyside in general. And, a long wall is not a nice thing to go up where people have had trees before. So, we'll have that bigger discussion at the retreat. But so that's why I want you to ask all your questions now. Why you have Julie and Ed in the room.
Can we go back to the slide that just shows the map of projects? No, all the way back, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. Yeah. So can I ask, item number 5, Does that have a design aspect to it as well?
So item 5 is replacement of the concrete box culvert at Cedar.
Yeah.
Right now, that is a box culvert with concrete wing walls.
Mhm.
The size, it's gonna grow a couple of feet and maybe a foot in the depth, and I think 6 feet wider than it currently is today, just as a frame of reference. We have not had any discussions about a treatment to the head wall or wing walls at that location.
Can we show that picture that I sent over, please? So the east side has had a lot of temporary mitigation and a lot of temporary placement of things. You know, obviously you guys are well versed in the sandbag walls on Grandview. I feel so bad for that woman at Grandview and Linda Vista. We're getting a lot of stuff like this right now. And what we're not seeing is permanent, beautiful infrastructure. And so when we talk about the things that should go, you know, there's just big keep out, flash flood, it's chain link fence, it's already filled with Siberian elms. That took basically 2 months for that to happen. It was crazy. And if you look down, it's filled with garbage because nobody can access it to clean it out now. The funny thing is on the other side, there's actually no chain link, so you could get caught in a culvert on one side and they get pulled under and then nobody could rescue you. But the concern I have is that, one, being a little piecemeal in our approach to these projects, and we're not taking this opportunity to have a holistic aesthetic approach to some of these mitigation efforts. So this is just down the street. It's just a half a block away from the wedge. You know, the wedge is significant. People on the east side, they walk their dogs in it. It's actually a very popular camping site for the unhoused. There's a lot of people that sleep in there at night. Not anymore, obviously. They've mostly moved up the hill into the plants up on the rim by the park there. And then the concern is like when you look at like the foots on the west side, you know, you get beautiful foots fencing, you get nice paths, you have access along channels that are flood channels through neighborhoods. We've really lost an opportunity to get a flat foots. There are actually no flat foots on the east side of Flagstaff. There's no place for anyone to ride their bicycles. There's just this is a massive infrastructure project. And I just think that when we talk about what needs to happen aesthetically, when we talk about things like murals are temporary. Like the concrete form liners I really like because that is permanent, long-lasting, multi-decade aesthetic investment in the neighborhood. And when it needs to happen at all the points and be considered as a holistic project, I think. The east side deserves just as much aesthetic consideration as the west side does. And when we look at like the work that we've done in the channel here next to the city hall, that's certainly quite a bit more beautiful than the work that we've done here. And it's certainly quite a bit more considered. And so I don't actually have a super strong opinion about what those things need to be specifically, but I do think that they need to be permanent. They need to be holistically considered across projects. And they need to be a long-term investment in the neighborhood. It's just, you know, Cedar House Coffee has closed and opened twice now, and it was a pretty popular space before the floods. They're struggling, they closed, they just opened again this last week. You know, it's like I encourage everybody to go buy a coffee there and just support them because they are trying. But there are a lot of businesses that have invested in their aesthetics on that section between 4th and West. And I think that, you know, from the wedge on, we really need to support that.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, we're always very, very open for comments and how to do that. I think one of the challenges that we have on Spruce Wash is the lack of city-owned property. and then also the lack of width. So that's a big issue we have.
The lack of what?
Width.
Oh.
So the fact that we don't have the width to have a natural channel, or we don't have the width to have a foot next to a natural channel, because we would all like to see that as well. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of chain link fence, I'm not a huge fan of shotcrete, but I mean, that's really what a lot of areas where we're kind of constrained because of the constraints of the footprint. But that doesn't mean that there might not be something outside of our engineering toolbox of how to make that look better. So we're very, very open to that. So if you come and say, hey, you know, if we just colorize it this way, or hey, if you were to do X, Y, or Z, I already thought about that. It'd be great to hear those.
Yeah, I think that an ugly fence takes up about the same amount of space as an attractive and safe fence. And that's really what we want to look at. I think as a commission, we should prioritize that.
I'd certainly agree that a holistic approach across the project is a much better way to go rather than a more scattershot approach, which I realize isn't intentional. It's sort of catch as catch
Oh,
can.
yeah, you guys have.
But if we can plan ahead for that, that'd be better. I have not an art question. Can you go back to the picture of the map?
Oh, looks like Claire has her hand up as well. Sorry about that, Claire.
That's all right.
Even go to the one before that where the map's bigger. This isn't so much an artistic question as much as it is, can you explain to me where the water goes and how it's being diverted?
Yeah, there
There
you
we
go.
go,
Okay,
thanks.
That's what I
so,
was waiting for.
so the water is coming from the north. So where that
From
10
where it
is,
says 10?
yeah, so that's upstream.
Okay.
So the water is going to come down, and we are modeling for a 1,200 cubic feet per second flow. So
Okay.
that's, I don't know how to describe that in gallons per minute or anything else, but it's a lot of water, let's put it that way. So a lot of water coming down, and when it hits Linda Vista, which is at number 3,
Okay.
that's where we start having issues. So we have issues currently, and it's also where we have issues when we plan, because we can't send all of the water down the channel past number 3, because if we do, it's going to spill out in certain areas. That goes back to that footprint idea. So what we've had to do, and this took a lot of months and a lot of engineers, is separate out the flow at Linda Vista. So about half of it will go down the channel, and the other half will be split between going down Grandview, which is being re-engineered.
So, when it goes down the channel is the one that takes it to the wedge?
Correct. So channel is number 4.
Okay.
You see, yeah, so channel's 4 and 1 is Grandview. So you'll have 2 flows going down.
It's the dotted line.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
And
So you'll
then
have
Grandview is this
that street right there.
Right.
blue line.
Yeah, so that's what we call an inverted crown. So we'll actually depress the street to allow the street to take more flow.
We'll do what to the street?
Inverted crown, so it'll do
Okay.
the opposite, yep. And that will actually take about 300 CFS, more or less. And then the rest will have to go to the wedge concept, the number 2.
So at some point in there at about number 3, you divert a percentage of that towards the wedge?
Correct, yeah. So about half goes in the channel towards that number 4, and the other half is split between Grandview, which is number 1, and Wedge, which is number 2.
And you're basically you're going to turn Grandview into a river, admittedly a controlled one, but that's protect the housing.
So in 2021, we had a
We're not
couple
the housing
of really
protected.
large storms in 20 and 21. And what happened is that the Linda Vista culvert plugged and about 1,500 CFS went down Grandview Drive
Right.
and then went to Sunnyside. So the improvements upstream are also a way to help control that and improve that so we don't have that same situation again. And also as a reference point, that existing crossing at Linda Vista, that's designed for about 300 CFS is all that can handle. And that was for a pretty large storm event. And now we're looking at upwards of, like Ed said, 1,200 CFS. And that's about a 25-year storm event. So this isn't even a 100-year storm event. 100-year storm event would be quite a bit larger.
And the diversion that takes it to the wedge looks like what?
It'll be about a 60-inch diameter pipe underground, under the roadway.
Okay.
Will it have a lock?
We're gonna have a bolted grate to prevent pets and people from accessing it.
No, I mean,
Yes,
like,
and upside.
will it stop the flow, or will it, is it not?
Yes, and then at the basin itself, we're gonna have a sluice gate at that location, because once that basin fills up, we need a way to stop the flow coming in so it doesn't spill over onto Cedar.
Yeah, and then from the wedge, it'll re-enter their existing stormwater system at Cedar, so it's a, I believe, 24-inch pipe. And that'll drain, so that'll slowly drain back into the channel, back into 5, which is the Cedar Avenue crossing. And the same with Grandview, so as it comes down Grandview and gets to Cedar, there'll be a very large grate that will take that flow back into a portion of it back into the channel. And then it kind of flows down that channel again until you get to Arroyo Seco. And then we have yet another diversion. So part of it will go back into the existing 60-inch pipe that's in the ground. And the other half roughly will go to Killip School, where they have the 2 basins. And then from there, then it drains back into both the existing Spruce Wash 60-inch pipe, as well as where number 8 is. There'll be a new pipe that will take it over to what we call West Street Wash, which is a 42 or 48-inch pipe. So again, we have to get very creative here because it's a very built environment. Sunnyside's built up, and the flow that we're dealing with is pretty extreme for that small of a footprint. So we can't just take it in one location. We actually have to intentionally spread it out, bring it back in, spread it out to really kind of prevent damage to homes and to property. So it's been an interesting, and I'm not saying that in a good way, but an interesting engineering problem to work.
And for the wedge detention basin, as well as the ones at Killip, how often and how much do you expect them to fill?
That's a great, I mean, it really depends on rainfall recurrence. I mean, that's the driving factor in everything that we do. Sometimes you can have 3 100-year floods in a row, and other times you can go 50 years and it's a huge drought, nothing happens. It's really, it's a hard game to play. It's kind of like playing the lotto. Yeah, but I mean, that's the $1 million question, or the $26 million question. If we knew what the future was, we could do nothing. It wasn't gonna rain.
Ask God.
I have a few comments on the wall itself at the wedge. To me, thinking about it from a perspective of our commission, I do think the height from the street level is really important. I think having it at a height that might prevent needing a guardrail on top for that 15-foot drop on the other side would be really key, as well as aesthetically, as well as for the ultimate art opportunity. I do think a form liner would be exciting in that it could have some more durability in terms of maintenance. But I also think there might be an opportunity if the wall does get, say beyond 6 feet in height in some places. I'd be curious at least if there's an opportunity to terrace it on the street side and add more landscape improvements. I was really excited that you were able to preserve so many of those trees in that location. I think that'll be a real asset to the ultimate project. And then I know often these basins are seeded and those can be kind of meadow-like. So I don't know if there's a place where there could be a view into that, but just some general thoughts about the final appearance of the wedge site in particular.
Claire, what would you think would be a good height for aesthetically? Do you have any ideas?
I think it might depend, but I would imagine 4 feet or so, a little bit above a guardrail height, but that would also give opportunity for artwork without all the splash and weeding and things that happen along the base of the wall, and whatever treatment that happens to be.
Claire, I really like your idea about terracing in front of the wall to create those other planting opportunities. That also would probably really break up I mean, I suppose that's the intent, is to break up the visual dominance of that single wall. Because one of my other questions was, is there an opportunity when you look at that wall and all of the stuff that we had to take out? It's funny, I think the only tree that survived on that side was actually a Siberian elm, which.
We'll get rid of that.
Yeah.
But-
And I was like, no, don't save that tree.
We
That's
won't.
okay. Like, I don't want to weed those. But, any tree but that tree.
Yep.
Great. But, anyway, that's the intent, correct, is to break up that visual dominance?
Yes, yeah, I think, you know, all things coming down to, of course, you know, the budget and such, but just knowing that there is such a long straight stretch of wall, it might not be one approach, but a combined approach, where because I do think of that area as a real threshold between neighborhoods where West meets Cedar, and maybe there's like one area that you want to feature rather than the whole segment of wall. And then the question is, if there are higher sections of wall, is there a way to break it up? Maybe it's just a landscape treatment in front, or maybe it's terraced, but something like that I think could also be a great combined approach to consider as you move forward.
Is the goal to keep people off the top of the wall, or does it matter?
I would prefer to have someone on top of a wall that has a 15-foot drop. That would be.
So the terracing might not be the.
Or it has
Well,
to be
like-
cleverly terraced.
Yeah, there's probably ways you can terrace it that, yeah, you can still keep people from going. You know, stairs.
You could do something in front of it that feels aesthetically like it's a part of the system that
Sure.
isn't an access point. And we love to name planters.
And how high is the ground up there? Like, you know, from the street level, it's about 3 to 4 feet, right, before you hit that wall?
I think that's about.
So then you're gonna
sounds
have
about right.
4 feet on top of that too. Okay.
Yeah.
And then how far is it set back from the road?
15 to 20 feet from the back of the
Where-
sidewalk.
Okay. That gives me a good idea. Thank you. Now, how does the budget look for this, Jenna? I know you don't like to be rushed into projects. I know we have plenty of flexibility, but how do you feel about this?
That's what this is all about, answering the questions so that I can bring forth a potential project budget to the retreat, but that hasn't been done yet. So we.
Yeah, but it,
Right.
how do
But
you feel about
it is.
such a quick moving project? Is it feasible?
It's feasible.
Okay.
It's feasible.
It's really amazing to be brought in this early
Yeah.
on the project.
Very
It's unusual.
And then also, how do we,
And I'm wondering also if there's an opportunity to combine some of these aesthetics with things that we determine on the roundabout. You know, and to start to create that unified neighborhood streetscape, like all the way from 4th Street down to the Wedge. There's a lot of aesthetic opportunity. I mean, that roundabout is the single largest aesthetic investment in the east side ever. And now this will be larger, it sounds like. So, I mean, good on the east side for getting smart, but.
We also have the retaining wall community mosaic, that also is part of that roundabout, so. They don't necessarily have to match.
No, they don't have to match,
They
but
can be complementary.
it would be nice if they could have a conversation, I
Yes.
think. And I agree, they shouldn't necessarily match. I mean, but having the visual and sort of aesthetic conversation would be lovely.
Can I ask a question to the commission?
Yes, of course.
Would you envision, or would you like to see a jog or a break in that plane
What do you think,
of that wall?
Commissioner Edelman Heath, your expertise is needed?
I think that could be beneficial. One thing that strikes me is that right now, you know, someone asked the question of, you know, the part that angles out towards the intersection that might feel more like a gateway is screened by the trees that you're preserving, which I think it's a great thing. I think don't change that, or I wouldn't want to see that. But I was wondering if there's an opportunity to angle a panel of the wall or something like that, and that might come down to if there's a art opportunity there, but that would face not instead of parallel to the street, but face more in a north-south direction. That would be more visible to people, but I know there's different aspects that go into that. Just an idea.
Yeah, I mean, your primary viewers on that wall are people entering and exiting the Safeway. shopping center and that traffic right there. It is it's weird, that wedge is beloved by the east side. It's a funny thing, people are fond of it, and I'm kind of surprised at I think people are also exhausted by the flooding, and so they're willing to accept exchanges right now. It's, safety for aesthetic challenges, but it'd be nice if we could give them both. Yeah, okay. Is that everything?
I tell people I know, there's no such thing as a dumb idea. I'm gonna follow my own advice. This might be a real dumb idea. Part of me thinks it'd be really cool to incorporate the water into the art. So that on those occasions, which you don't know how often it happens, that there is a flooding, that the art interacts with the water and something new happens. And I don't know what that is, but.
Well, I've certainly had a project like that. I have it was part of, and I made equine gargoyles that spouted water when it flooded in Scottsdale. So it is possible to do. And the other one, they also made like little floating, there was like berms in the flooded area that kind of became islands when it flooded. But this isn't visible. In a way, it's being shielded. So
I hear you.
yeah, so that makes it a bit more difficult, where this was a kind of like a fall of water, like a waterfall when it floods. It's the Indian Bend Wash in Scottsdale, so it went over a fall, and then that made the water for the gargoyles. But you can, we'd have to think hard about how to do this, but it's certainly not out of the realm of public art to do such a thing.
See, it's not a dumb idea.
Think about it more than just 12 minutes, but
We have a lot more time to think about it too before budget time comes up.
I don't know if it's gargoyles spouting water or little boats that raise and water comes.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That would be kind of cool.
It kind of would. That was something that
We have
has,
to have a
in recent
portal.
years, been a tragedy, can become something that, there's kind of a cool thing that happens.
There is the center of the basin. You could do something in the center. The problem that we've struggled with is, and pros as well, is do you want to make it an attraction or not? Because there isn't parking and there isn't an easy way to get to it. So, and that's a discussion to be had beyond just the engineers. But there is the interior of the basin if you wanted to do something like a water feature type thing.
So
We'd
like,
get
okay.
into, would we need to put in parking, bathrooms,
Yeah.
everything else.
All good questions.
Yeah.
Which I think is a good reason not to put like a mosaic or mural necessarily, something that you can see from a distance, which would attract less people to get there. But I had a quick question. You guys are really amenable to the idea of, well, of course you brought it to us about putting stuff in the wedge, but how open or realistic is it to do some of the other improvements that Carla was talking about, just so we could know to figure that into the budget?
So like wing walls and fencing and stuff like that. I think wing walls are very doable because it's not something we're going to hit with a loader, probably, hopefully. The bottom of the channel a little harder because we're going to be scraping that in the channel a little harder. Fencing, yeah, if we can find a good safety fence, and that's really what it comes down to. Chain link's just easy for us because it's an easy safety fence. But if we can find other, and there are, I know we better than you, there are other safety fences out there that are more artistic. No, I think we'd be amenable to that for sure. Again, we don't like ugly either. It's just sometimes we're pushed to be pragmatic.
Yeah, no, and it's understood that you guys have been working very quickly and now we have the opportunity. We've talked about these challenges before, and the answer we got was we have to get this safe first. And now we have an opportunity to come back and have these conversations, and so we're grateful for that, for sure. Anything else, you guys?
I think it's a great project. Thank you guys for presenting
Well,
too.
yeah,
Yeah, thank you for having us.
I
We'll
really
stay.
appreciate it.
Yeah, we have regular meetings
Yes.
with Jana and Dave talking about it. It's a great story for our community, and I'd love to see it with feedback about the fires, the floods, and then the recovery.
And we really thank Stormwater for reaching out to us I know how fast you've been moving, and then you reached out to us in a way that we can respond.
Yeah,
Yes, thank you.
And lastly, could you guys, please, or maybe you can do it, just get some of the meetings that Stormwater has been having, like the last one or the last two or something to us, so that way folks that haven't followed along with the process could understand it better when they're budgeting for the artwork. Just a link to the YouTube or whatever.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
A lot of that up online, so easy.
Yeah, I know how to find
I
it.
mean, I know, but it's easy
Not
for us to
everybody
share.
does.
Yeah, not everybody, and it's a lot of very, so, yeah.
Thanks,
Thank you,
man.
guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, cool. So we'll move on to discussion item 2, the ArtX fiscal year 25 conversation with Julie Sokol, ArtX Director.
I have a little preamble. Would
Oh.
you come and take a seat?
Sure. And Jana Weldon.
Yes, Jenna Weldon. I put myself second in the narrative, but I just thought actually I will go ahead and give you the brief synopsis of
May I,
our
Jenna,
funding
before
today.
you do that?
Yes.
As a lot of you know, I chair the ArtX steering committee, so I'm going to recuse myself from the discussion.
Okay.
So come get me when you're done. I'm actually going to step outside.
Okay.
So,
Go get him, Julie.
Thank you, Commissioner. Right, we still have a quorum, yes. So, first of all, what I'm doing is I'm bringing you just a little recap of the funding that we have expended to date for Creative Flex and ArtX. It was only just a little over a year ago today, I found this old presentation. It was a Creative Flex staff funding request back on August 8th, 2022. And so now I'm just updating it, but I went ahead and tied right into this. You guys gave a motion to approve for the Pilot Art Festival at that time with this memorandum of understanding for the use of the funds. So for those of you who were on the commission, you might remember, but there was, we would have some input on the locations, and I have been part of the ArtX Festival Committee since. Did some work with introducing Julie and Jonathan to the park system and, creating some relationships there. Everything else that we asked for was agreed to and carried through and more. The other thing that happened is in addition to that $50,000 in FY23 for the pilot, there was $50,000 in nonprofit grant funding used for the project funding as well. $50,000 was for operating, and then there was also money that came from grants that weren't completed by the arts and sciences nonprofits and some one-time extra funding that we had because we had greater BBB revenues than anticipated. Then in January of this year, when ArtX was applying for the Bloomberg grant, we wanted to show support for the city being part of that grant application, and you guys, as part of the budget process, approved another $50,000 in operating for FY24, and that will be part of the May 2024 festival budget. And then we are providing $90,000 in nonprofit grant funding that's directed, again, to very specific projects. We had even a bigger BBB revenue, so we gave one-time funding to this, as well as we increased arts and sciences nonprofit grants overall with one-time funding. So we never took from the arts and sciences nonprofit grants that I know as a commission you guys don't see. That's something that is under Creative Flag staff's contract. It's passed through grant funding. I sit on those committees as well as, and we used to have another commissioner on, Tina used to also sit on those grant funding, for the regular nonprofit arts and sciences grant funding opportunities. I would love to get another commissioner who had time on those as well, because it's Creative Flag staff does a wonderful job of running those grants, but it's always good for you guys to have a little bit of an idea of what that money is being spent on, because it's $400,000 of money that's being spent every year. But that's the background, and now I'm going to turn it over to do. Thank you.
Well, hi, everybody. Commissioners, thanks for having me back. I'm Julie Simple. If I haven't met you or harassed you for venue space or to be on the jury or the committee or both, thank you for 2023. I am coming up on my 1 year with Creative Flagstaff and ArtX in December, and it's been quite a wild ride, but with a lot of support from this group and folks in this room. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm so excited that we get to keep doing it. So that's what I want to talk to you guys about today, is what 2023 ended up looking like and what our plans are for 2024. And if you have questions, feel free to
And 2025.
jump in. And 2025. We've got lots of, there's so many plans. I'm gonna have Jonathan kick us off quickly just to do, oh, sorry, I have too many buttons. Let's see. To do a quick recap and the connection between ArtX and Creative Flagstaff.
I know pretty much everyone here. My name is Jonathan Stone, I'm Executive Director of Creative Flagstaff. Pleasure hiring Julie to put on this project, and she's largely done most of it, so that's a wonderful thing. When thinking about ArtX as such a large-scale, catalytic, comprehensive thing, you never want to take on those kinds of projects lightly, especially when there's other things that we could do. And I just wanted to share in terms of how ArtX fits into your work as a commission, but also our strategic plan. And so I pulled this from the ordinance, and in terms of what we're responding to. And you guys are looking for direct and indirect citizen participation, enhancement of the overall quality of life, and ArtX, as you'll see, really kind of responds to that citizen participation component. ArtX is a brand platform in and of itself to help promote the entire arts and sciences sector. And as it continues to build, we expect even greater participation from all of our nonprofits and artists and creatives. This is the only program that Creative Flagstaff operates where we do provide direct investment in artists and nonprofits, in artists, but it also allows for nonprofits to receive benefit from this. So if you're familiar with our grant-making programs, those are, we require nonprofit status for all of our other grants. These are only grants that we offer that can go to artists themselves. And ultimately, the ArtX is implemented by a professional team, which is one of your duties in the ordinance as it's stated. In terms of our strategic plan, there's three kind of major goals that this supports, and that is strong, resilient art, science, and culture nonprofits, a shared community experience, as well as our emerging identity as one of the Southwest's most creative cities. So that is why ArtX is a thing from our strategic plan. Our strategic plan, of course, takes in lots of inputs, including your work as a commission and the city's goals, and a lot of other community input that we've received as well.
What am I pointing at? Should I just point at Craig?
It's frozen.
While he's pulling that up, I'm gonna have to scoot probably before conversation's over. You're in good hands with Jill.
I do have pretty pictures, but if you want, I'll just talk at you guys.
Keep rolling.
Okay, let's keep rolling. So the next slide is really just chatting about what we've learned over the last year, which is a lot. We've come up with a mission and a vision to refine both DPAC's ordinances and what your intentions are as a commission, aligning that with Creative Flagstaff's strategic plan, and then all of the feedback that we've received from folks that either participated as artists, as collaborators, as venue hosts, or as attendees. And there was a lot to learn. As we've refined that, there's a lot of intention. Thank you. There's a lot of intention I would say for 2024 and beyond, including 25, the biggest one is expanding both the footprint and the timeline. So this past year, we started with 2.5 days of programming, and I'm so excited that next year we get to do 10 days. And it expands just from this downtown footprint to the entire city. That's my favorite part, besides paying artists and creatives to do whatever it is that they submit to the jury. So really having this mission of providing an annual accessible community opportunity that engages with the arts both in an immersive and interactive way. It's the most fun thing. It's how I was lured into this job, and I'm so excited to keep doing it with the jury, which we just kicked off this afternoon. The vision here is really to provide that platform both for regional, national, local artists and creatives and thinkers, and that's sharing their stories and their lived experiences. So a true reflection of this community. I need your help, Craig.
Yeah, sorry.
So this past May, we saw 2.5 days of programming during the pilot event. That was truly a demonstration of everything we hoped. And it was a success, both from what we heard from attendees as well as from folks who participated. Of course, there's opportunities to learn, but for 2.5 days, with about a 4.5-month lead time, we ended up with over 50 artist participants, including performers, collaborators, musicians, and creatives, and those were seen across 28 different partner venues just in the downtown and south side footprint. So I'm happy to say that we were able to grant 14 core projects this May with $40,000 of project grant awards. And if Craig, if you will help me out in playing the video, you guys get a little taster of our highlight reel from this year.
It's not going through.
So that's just a quick little teaser of what we saw this past year that included super diverse art-centric and creative projects, from the super fine art installations that we saw from Brian David Griffith, and that it also allowed us to do a fun partnership with the Knackard family, with Knackard Cupsey. They converted a historic warehouse in the south side that has just been sitting empty into this pop-up art gallery space. So that's one of the other super fun things for me, is finding new opportunities to put art in spaces that have been sitting empty, even if it's just temporary. So I'm happy that we were able to see everything from dance and music and poetry to installations where all ages were able to participate. And I'm really excited to expand that with the jury and the submissions that are coming in for 2024. So that's my little takeaway from 2023. Let's see if I can hook you guys. No.
Oh,
You could go
you
one
did.
more.
I didn't do it.
Oh, did I? Okay, we're back on the so mostly I really wanted to point out that our partnership that Jonathan and Jana have both pointed to is really important and helpful for me, and it has directed a lot of decisions that we're making so that there's integration across city departments with staff. That's been incredibly helpful with this group, of course, but also with pros. They have offered up a ton of space and just sort of in good faith partnership. So I'm optimistic that we'll be able to continue that and pull it through to locations across the city. But yeah, that expanded footprint is exciting. The longer duration of events is exciting. And there is a pretty good balance that we received in the community feedback that we asked for from visitation as far as why ArtX was an important opportunity for this city. And about 50% of folks said it's good for building culture and community. And the other 50%, which I was shocked by, said that it's important for visitation. And as we know, this past pilot was over Memorial Day weekend. I did not know how that was going to go. DBA was not super pleased in meeting me around that capacity. But as we look to 2024, we're going to begin it the weekend prior and run 10 days ending in Memorial Day. So really looking at balancing the first weekend sort of more local focused and the second weekend with a little bit more visitation focused, to give people an opportunity to see and experience different things across that timeline and across the footprint. My biggest takeaway, of course, I think is obvious, is that the brand awareness and the partnerships take time to build. And I was still quite fresh in May, but this past year has been a lot of knocking on doors and having coffee with folks to say, this is an amazing opportunity to build community, and it's by hosting art that we're paying directly the artists to do. So, as we continue with a beautiful brand kit that's bright and fun, and now we have video content and we've captured all of this imagery, it's a lot easier of a sell to build those partnerships. So as we look to 2024 and beyond, the operational support is amazing, and I can't appreciate it enough because that has allowed me to be here and do the thing. But also it allows us to do all of the takeaways that we've learned from 2023 in those 2.5 days. And my optimism continues both with the pool of applicants that has grown, as well as the pool of jurors who are interested and their diversity. So I really feel like in a very short time, everything that we're doing is super reflective of the community and the intentions of people who are paying attention and want to participate. So for 2024, we've talked about the footprint and the timeline. Also working hard in those partnerships for the increased accessibility, whether that's bringing things to specifically to neighborhoods as pop-up art so that you see it no matter what. We had a small example in May with the art and poetry on the buses, so that even if you were getting on the bus to go to school or you were taking it to go to work, you still had something beautiful to look at for your ride. And that was such a perfect example of what we're hoping for. So I'm waiting for the rest of these submissions to come through. Our deadline closes on Friday, so that we'll be able to have more pop-up beautiful art in places that you didn't expect it, in tiny neighborhood pocket parks or on the street or on the buses, so that it circulates throughout the community. And then the best part, I'm so excited to say, is that our project grant award amount has gone from $40,000, which was hard for the jury to spend. We had 38 submissions last year. They could not decide. There were so many options. So it was hard to decide which ones would get fully funded. This year we're going in with $90,000, and that's from private donations from the Arizona Community Foundation's ArtX Fund, as well as our other partners. So I wanted to tell you, let's see, about the 2024 budget. Just high level so you can see where dollars are getting allocated. So essentially it's a 50-50 split, excluding myself, between paying artists and creatives and everything else operationally it takes to put on the festival. So 90,000 is going towards those project grant awards, and then the rest of those are operations, advertising, marketing, documentation, our keynote speakers, other festival expenses. Those are our two big pools of money. And all of the revenue support for 2024 is from a huge grant that we have from Arizona Office of Tourism, which speaks to our visitors and how we look at that second weekend of programming. ECF, like I mentioned, and then of course ETV's Art and Science Fund, and some earned revenue in there as well.
I don't know.
So as we look beyond 2024, a huge piece of what I work on with our development director, April O'Mara, is identifying more larger grants that can fund ArtX into the future in the the impact that we are all hopeful that it can actually serve for this community. We did apply for Bloomberg's $1 million grant and were not selected. There's definitely some learnings in that, as well as the Arizona Community Foundation's Arizona Common Good Challenge. It's their new Arizona Prize. That one, we were actually one of the top 6 finalists, so we were very excited and slightly very disappointed that we weren't one of the winners. But what we learned from both of those, the processes for both, is looking at the cities and the organizations that did win and what they offered versus what we had included in our application. And so as we look at new applications and identify what those grants are, to both align with what they're looking for and ensuring that our programmatic answers what those questions are. It includes more than just bringing art and community together, which I was like super optimistic that was a beautiful story to tell. But a lot of the feedback is that it's not compelling enough to secure these really large grants. It might be a $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 grant, and we did receive the $10,000 from Arizona Common Good, but in order to hit this $100,000 plus mark, it needs to be much more impactful. So the lessons that we've taken away have essentially given us this idea that art is capable of doing more, and we have this opportunity to use ArtX as the platform to do more in community than just bring people together or encourage conversation. This is the catalytic moment. And so as we have been working sort of as staff and we're applying for grants, we're looking for community-specific projects. This latest one that we applied for, which was a $100,000 plus grant, would include something like this recently proposed neighborhood residency program. So essentially the idea is that we would identify 3 neighborhoods, which was Sunnyside, Southside, and Plaza Vieja, and do a call for artists and have an artist live and work for 6 weeks, one in each of those neighborhoods. And at the end of the 6 weeks, align the timeline so that they would present whatever the project is, whatever their medium is, to the community at ArtX. And so that project would be inclusive of collecting stories from the local community, working with and being paired with neighborhood associations. So it's truly integrated and a true reflection of what is happening in that hyper-specific part of our community, so that it's actually telling the current story of that neighborhood. So that's one thing that we have talked about, to try and utilize ArtX as the platform, but do the work within that program, and hopefully we'll gain some more traction and gain some more grant dollars. Anything you would add there? Or any questions? No, I'm just kind of talking at you guys.
And I will just add though that, when there's a grant application, they look to see if the city is a partner. However, that might manifest.
Yes, I ask the mayor's office frequently for letters of support. So yeah, essentially, and this has been from looking at other cities that were funded and what those projects were. A lot of them are looking past just, quote, just beautification and art for art's sake. And that is feedback that we receive from other cities. Whereas we are super lucky that there's funding dedicated to that beautification. But when they look at us as a new project, they want more. And I think that's a fair ask to say, if this is an opportunity within community, what's sort of the deliverable? So that's what we're figuring out, and I anticipate getting more feedback, especially as we look at the applications this year. So, Craig, help me out.
Sorry.
I don't know what, why is it that?
It's not ready to move into the future.
Right.
While he's doing that, I'll just say that the funding of large-scale community-driven arts projects is a moving target in this current landscape. A lot of things changed with the pandemic in terms of how funders support funding of things. And ArtX is a real beautiful opportunity to create this platform where all of our mission-driven organizations can access, be engaged in some way. And so there's the slide, but I'll maybe finish on the first point, and I'll give it back to Julie, is that BPAC is one of those that has an opportunity to leverage Ardex. And I know that this year, I think you had hoped that the library would finally be open to have some sort of community engagement moment. But, you know, we, Ardex, public art and other public arts really don't have a lot of a place to have those engagement opportunities. And so in addition to a funding request, right, this is also a partnership request for you and for everybody that does mission-driven work or art work or public whatever work in the community.
And so some of those ideas, just in chatting with Jana, sort of as a first level, but I'm also hopeful that someone else has some great ideas in this room. And I love this, is to host guided tours around the city where we already have beautiful existing public art that maybe people don't know about or have forgotten, to highlight like the amazing work that's at the airport that maybe you only see if you have the opportunity to fly out. So I don't know, I already have maybe personally solicited a bike shop to try and do a bike. There's already a map made, like let's get people on bikes and do the bike public art tour. So just to highlight some of our existing assets and celebrate what exists. I mean, that's sort of the premise.
With 10 days to fill for this, I thought it would be an absolutely wonderful opportunity to do a bike tour of public art pieces and also have a speaker out at the airport to, you know, lead a tour through for that project specifically, because there's a rather interesting historian in the state who is very entertaining and who I think could build on that project really well.
So if you guys have other creative, clever ideas, a huge premise of Ardex, of what sort of sold me as someone who grew up in Austin, Texas, and saw South by Southwest explode, was all of the fun, interesting, weird things that already exist in that city that get elevated in a, you know, an event of this size. So let's celebrate those things without, you know, sort of ruining them. is my personal intention with all of this. But of course, I individually want to ensure, you know, clarity and transparency as you guys move forward super quickly. I know November is right, it feels like it's tomorrow. So as you guys move into your annual budget retreat, we're here to answer questions ahead of that.
You'll need an e-bike partner for the Lowlanders for that bike tour. So,
yes, that's a good point.
You may want to consider that one.
Mm-hmm.
So, does anybody have any comments or questions that they'd like to ask commissioners? Commissioner Garcia?
No, I think we got all the info.
Commissioner Edelman-He?
Well, I'm, you know, as you all know, I'm newer to Flagstaff, but also spent a number of years in Austin, and I do really appreciate how these types of events can bring community together and celebrate artists. So I'm just really excited to see all the programming, and I'm excited to see what happens when you take it from 2.5 days to 10. I think that's going to be really valuable for our community.
Commissioner Johnson? Any thoughts?
You know, not too much. I am really happy to see kind of the synopsis of what you guys have been able to do. And I'm excited to see, you know, the next few years, how you grow and how everything continues to evolve. So thank you for bringing this to us and showing us.
Thank you. I think these kinds of projects deserve more than a year. You know, you do have to have that learning period. You do have to have the opportunity to figure out what worked and what didn't work. But I do think that your second year is a real test. Yeah. And so I'm looking forward to seeing that, because it's important. It kind of has to see some viable and interesting change in order to bring it back again for that third year and say, and that's what we all want. I mean, I think Flagstaff should be a center of arts in Arizona, and so it would be amazing if we could get this festival to really go and see the numbers that we hope to see in terms of people participating. So thank you for your time and your effort and your work.
So to piggyback off that question, Jonathan, do you have an idea from the festivals that you've been to and stuff, how, like, what the timeline is before it really gets to jump in? Because I remember when we were at that the festival in Grand Rapids. That was 10 years in, and they said like up to the 5th year, it was still kind of shaky.
Don't have a real good sense. It's the festival that Commissioner Garcia is referencing is one that had been presented to this commission before, and we've learned some things, you know, in that exploration process. There's certainly a very different dynamic of inputs that went into making that event successful, and recognizing those inputs don't exist in Flagstaff. That is why we ultimately pivoted the concept of festival. And of course, we have now chosen a free to the public, pay the artists, have staff kind of festival, which makes it certainly more expensive than you know, some of the other festivals in the community. But it's going to be a few years.
It's
going to be a few years, and one of the challenges that we're learning as we go through this process of discovering how it might fund, because you know there's more money that's being spent than what's being asked of a BPAC, is that it's we're educating the community as well as to the importance of these kinds of activities in the community, and it's not as clear cut as saying let's have a live music festival or but that's why we chose ArtX. We chose ArtX as that tool to have that conversation with the community, and so I'm hopeful that other private partners will come on board in meaningful ways, but I also believe in the sort of public good that is of this project, and I'm very supportive of the city's continued participation in supporting various aspects of this event, because it wouldn't be possible without the city's support.
Well, I love that commentary, Jonathan, and I was talking to Julie earlier today at a meeting, and I mentioned that I had been part of the process ever since John's News in like 2010, 2011, when we were just talking about this idea. Mm-hmm. And there was always those challenges that didn't get put into place until Jonathan came through it. And now we have so many good partners involved with it. And I think it's wonderful after 10 years of discussion, what has come out of it so far. And I really like your guys' positivity and your guys' strive forward. One little tidbit is probably not that important, but I was just wondering, like you say you have like some sort of percentages of people you talk to that said this and that. Like, you talk to a lot of people or not too many?
We got under 200. So
that's good.
It's good for year 0, which is what I'm referring to it as, but it's still not, like, I was hoping for 500, which I feel like is a little more. Like, that's something
I was expecting survey responses, which are okay.
Yeah, I
mean, 200 is really good in this community. There's other.
I thought so.
There's other public input processes, like for the city's the regional plan update has had you know, different levels of participation. So
yeah, it's helpful just to get feedback from people's immediate experience, whether it was just within one, you know, something on the courthouse lawn that hit different people in different ways, or if someone literally made it out to every single thing that we had programmed. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Commissioner McGrath is not here tonight. He is in the Forest Service, but he is in California dealing with a fire, and so he couldn't be here tonight. But he attended a lot of the events, and was very complimentary of the ones that he attended. Yes.
Well, I hope he wouldn't have had to recuse himself because his wife is applying for a grant this year.
Oh.
Well, you know, the whole commission's going to be.
Technically, we're not voting.
Right.
We're not voting. So, all right, does anybody have anything else?
No, thank you for answering those questions. I wasn't able to attend this year. That's why I have a point of curiosity.
Of course.
So thank you very much. We really appreciate you guys coming out.
Yes. Thanks for the time.
Thank you. All right.
Sorry, I missed a little prep meeting today.
That's okay. We're always in sync. You like this?
And Moving on to item number 3, BIA grant
If I
guidelines
can
and
find
criteria.
it on Craig's computer.
Let's wait for
Yes.
Commissioner Beryl to come back and join us.
Oh, geez, I wasn't gonna wait for you, I was just kidding.
I know, you're getting your.
Yeah, yeah, so that's great.
Hopefully it'll work.
And Krista, you're gonna highlight some grant guidelines?
Yes.
I would have been up there.
And outline the two-step process?
Okay, here's hoping.
Hit it.
Okay, so in anticipation of our fall grant cycle deadline, which is this Friday at 5 p.m., I'd like to do an overview of the BIA grants to familiarize ourselves on the background and guidelines. Okay. So this year, in particular this fall cycle, we are instituting a new revised timeline. So again, and I'll speak utilizing the fall cycle as an example, applications will be due September 15th. And then during the October BPAC meeting, commissioners will review applications. And in November, approved applicants will present to BPAC. So during that October meeting, when we review and discuss applications more thoroughly, any questions and outstanding issues from BPAC can then be communicated to applicants after their presentations in November.
So we'll take your questions in October and we'll give them to the applicants so that they can include the answers in their presentations
Yes,
in November.
thank you for clarifying. And examples of specific projects. So BIA projects can take the form of either art or landscaping projects. So art can be a myriad of things. It can be murals, mosaics, sculptures, etc.
Art wraps.
Art wraps. Landscaping projects can take the form of community gardens or pollinator gardens. Perhaps they include a neighborhood corner site or a block improvement, or amenities like benches, pathways, and flowers. The most important thing, or I should say one of the most important things, is that it must be a physical project. And so now we're getting into the guidelines of the grants. Eligible applicants, individuals, community groups, nonprofits, businesses, educational institutions with direct student participation are invited to apply and will be prioritized throughout the review process. Equally important, grants will not be awarded to political or partisan groups, exclusive clubs or associations. Applicants who have failed to successfully carry out a previous grant, and I am not wearing my glasses, project unless appropriate justification is made. Applicants that discriminate based on race, color, religion, gender, age, citizenship, non-disqualifying disability, national origin, or sexual orientation. Applicants that allocate more than half the grant to artist contractor time. Eligible projects. So these are mandatory. Spending limitations on items as defined by the city code. Grants of up to $4,500 per project are available. Up to half of the grant may be used for artist contractor fees, and this cannot exceed a maximum of $2,250 or $2,250. Projects with multiple funding sources are encouraged. Beautification projects will be accessible to the public. All necessary approvals for use of the property are or will be obtained. Project will comply with all applicable laws and codes. The project will be completed within 12 months of the grant award, and the applicant will arrange for any necessary water, electricity, or ongoing maintenance. It's almost good. Strongly recommended community engagement. Involvement of residents, community partnerships, and/or community groups. Demonstrated support of the community, and priority will be given to projects with lasting benefit to the community and to nonprofit groups and individuals such as artists. In some cases, temporary projects may be considered if the public benefit is great enough. Encouraged. Project proposals that utilize volunteers and/or student participation, are inclusive and demonstrate cooperative and collaborative efforts, involve in a meaningful way historically underserved communities with a focus on equity, enhance the knowledge and enjoyment of gardening through site beautification, have educational or historical relevance to the community, enhance the quality of life for people with disabilities. What is not allowed? Grant funds are not intended for new physical improvements and must not be used to support ongoing programs or services unless it is a new physical improvement project that does so. Duplicate an existing public or private project. Pay for operating expenses such as events, refreshments, or publicity expenses. Pay for expenditures or commitments made before the grant is approved. Equally discouraged. The Commission discourages, except in the case of extraordinary circumstances, projects that add any improvements, even aesthetic elements, to a larger project installed or constructed at the same time, would add or have the effect of signage unless the signage is interpretive or identification signage that is clearly secondary in scale and cost to the proposed budget. Signage that exceeds 10% of the grant amount is not considered secondary. Any questions? That's a lot.
That was clearly presented. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
No, not really.
Okay. I think that's great. Thank you for the reminders. Yeah. We'll move on to item number 4, flags and seals. Commissioner Garcia and Shannon.
All right, here it is. So, as I, oh, you want to just do it? It's like 2 slides or something. It's really nothing. So one day, about a year ago, I was driving across in front of the city hall and I saw like the breast awareness flag or something like that flying. And I thought to myself, where's our representation? Like, is there a space in time over the year with all these months being dedicated to shining the light on things for art? I didn't really know. So, and at the same time, I thought to myself, this would be a great way to get like maybe the school kids involved, to like have some sort of contest of designing maybe a flag to put up there. And lo and behold, as soon as I looked it up online, 15 minutes later, the program already existed and has for 30 years. So the month of October is, and I think you can switch the slide now. The month of October just happens to be National Art and Humanities Month. This is right out of the America for the Arts webpage. So I'll just read. A collective recognition of importance of culture in America. National Art and Humanities Month was launched by America for the Artists more than 30 years ago as a week-long honor to to the 20th anniversary of the National Art Endowment and the Endowment for the Humanities. But in 1993, it was reestablished as a month-long focus on, or a month-long program focused by the America for the Arts. Their focus was on equitable access to the arts, local, state, and national levels, encouraging individuals, organizations, and diverse communities to participate in arts, allowing governments and businesses to show their support for arts, and raising public awareness about the positive impacts of arts. All the things that I saw in the flag, and I had no idea it had already been written. So that's kind of the vision, is just to have some sort of representation of the month of October, for National Art and Humanities Month. And the action, of course, would be to, or I guess to create also a program to figure out how the flag would be designed, how we get that done. It could be through a BIA grant, looking into prices. I mean, you can get flags from $100 to less than $1,000 for a really big one. And also, there's some good examples, which I didn't put on the slides because there was like copyright issues on a couple of them, but there's a youth art month and every state has a youth art flag. So if you guys wanted to Google that, you can see like examples of what other states are doing. This will be more city focused. So the action would be just to get this in front of city council for their approval and to have them designate a month with a proclamation. Typical stuff for running stuff up the flagpole, basically. The result would be just an additional platform to represent art, and also my ultimate vision would be to get all the schools involved, really to push that time between the end of summer and Christmas as far as art engagement and sales are concerned, to kind of have that break in the middle to where we inspire the community from the youth level to take this opportunity to partner with the city in showing us what those kids can do. And through that art month, maybe we could have, in the bigger vision, the lobby down here filled up with all the other flag designs that didn't make it or whatever. So that's just the idea that I had so far. And because I'd never seen a 2-page PowerPoint, I added another page that just says questions and discussion.
You had me at 2 pages, Anthony.
So I actually do have a bunch of questions about this because I did take the time to look up the National Arts and Humanities Month. They have a very well-designed identity. And so one question I have is, if we're aligning with a national program, which isn't a bad idea, like when we talk about ArtX and trying to reach national prominence, would we be better off aligning with a national program, and would that flag be better to be a national arts and humanities flag that might be recognizable to more people? What month is this program?
October.
It's October. Because then I have a question too about the alignment with ArtX. Like if ArtX is our big art month,
Sure.
Are we kind of bifurcating our efforts? If we've got like an October thing and then we've got a May thing. And then the other question would be, if we did do one locally and we worked with kids, et cetera, would be, what is the staff time commitment for something like that? I have to admit, I never noticed those flags on the flagpoles, and I don't know how much of a needle it moves, but I know some people really notice those flags, and I know that they've certainly appeared in city council minutes before.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those things where I wonder about the impact and the timed commitment for staff. So those are my questions, and so I think we maybe as a hopping off point.
Yeah, those are really good questions and stuff that I thought about too. I couldn't find the national representation for Art Day, the flag. That is what it is?
Mm-hmm. The National Arts and Humanities flag.
Yeah, no, it was probably on the page that I was it was probably directly above what I was reading.
It's okay.
But it didn't look like art to me, so I wasn't drawn to it. So, yeah, I mean, I guess so. I don't know if we've ever aligned ourselves with that group, and they've had so much turmoil for the past
Yeah.
10 years that I almost cringe to do so.
Well, I just think about like what flags do, because flags are about alignment,
Right, right.
you know, and so like you have your national flag, you have your state flag, you have your flag
Sure.
staff flag, you know, you have your LGBTQIA flag, you know, and those are about aligning with a greater cause.
Sure.
And so I wonder
Sharing
if,
cause, you're right.
I wonder if maybe this is like, do we have enough synergy here that people would know what that flag was once it was designed?
Yeah.
You know, whereas like you see the LGBTQIA flag and you know what that flag is, and that's kind of what, I mean, that's
But I had to start
why
somewhere.
we wave flags from boats, right?
Yeah,
It's
but
because
that flag had to start somewhere.
Yeah,
Like somebody had to say, well, this is what it's gonna be.
sure. Yeah, no, it does. It's just, that's just the question I have is a flag with the amount of staff time, like, are we gonna communicate that message, or are people gonna be like, what is that flag?
Yeah, they'll probably just be confused by it. And the 2-page PowerPoint was because I didn't want to waste too much time on this either, if it was just gonna come up and get shot down immediately.
Yeah, and I'm not shooting it down, I'm just asking the questions, because I love community collaboration, I just want the staff time and the impact to be like equal to the result.
Yeah, and
So I think about like this east side stuff we were just talking about and how much time that's gonna take, and
yeah,
I wanna make sure we're not spending as much time on like a small impact item as we would. Like, it's one of the things I love about like our traffic boxes, is we've got that system down now, and those things move pretty fast, relatively speaking.
Yeah.
And they're a high impact item for the time investment.
yeah, and so really my ultimate, my thought behind it was just like throw it out there as a BIA grant. So it was really super simple, really low impact, and really just a way to get that proclamation in front of the city council, because there's what, like 6 of them or 12 of them a year? So why not art? I mean, that's what we do,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, we love art.
Then we need somebody to apply though for a BIA grant. That's not
Yeah,
staff, that's not a
Yeah, that-
staff-run process
Okay, so,
in that
yeah,
sense.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, we don't create the process for a BIA grant.
That's true.
I mean,
Like,
people
yeah,
come to us
They
with
have
their
to come.
ideas.
by that time I'll be off the commission.
Right.
I'll be back.
You got 4 days
to apply for a
Yeah.
BIA grant. That's right.
You got 4 days.
I got
So,
4 days.
I get, you know, as far as the staff time, I have like kind of 2 answers. One is if it's just an artist designing it, it can be run about the same as a traffic signal cabinet. It would be under $5,000. We could, you know, the staff time would be to put out the call, write the call. We'd have to put together a selection panel. It would be one meeting, we'd ask for proposals, and we do it the traffic signal cabinet. And of course, you know, it would be brought back to BPAC. If it's something like students creating, that's a whole lot of staff time. That's, you know, an entire different level of staff time. So I think that's something that, you know, has to, again, we'll put this, you know, at the retreat, you know, to prioritize as a project, but that is something that, you know, if your vision is for it to be students, we would want to know that. And if your vision is for an artist to design it, we would want to know that. Or if it's like, oh, I'm going to go out in the community and find somebody to apply for this as a BIA grant, it's a whole lot, you know, it doesn't even need to be part of the retreat. So just need a little definition for the budget retreat about what the vision is.
Okay, and mainly I wanted to, I think this was just an idea off the top of my head when I said it in the meeting. I'm not that serious about it. So if we don't like it right here, right now, then it just doesn't have to move forward.
I'm not saying we don't like it. I think the question is just like, what are we aligning with? Like, if we are aligning with that national program, then how do we represent that that's a part of the national program? And if we're not aligning with that national program, like, how do we?
What is our identity?
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
I think Claire Johnson has her hand up.
Yes, I do. I just wanted to comment. I actually really love this idea and involving students. And I think that, you know, we try to get people involved, the community involved in beautification and public art, but I think a demographic that is often left behind in that is the kids. And having a program like this, I mean, it gets kids involved in art, but also would get kids involved in like being part of the community and like being part of, um, just Flagstaff in general. And I think that can be really powerful, especially for like very young people, to have that kind of formative experience. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I think that's a really awesome way to get kids involved. Art contests are something that I think a lot of kids really can get into, and it's accessible to a lot of kids. I am not very savvy with like the political side of things or how to make these things happen. But I really do think that this is a fantastic idea, and however I could help with this, if it is something that we decide to do, I'd be happy to donate my time to help that kind of go along, because I think this would be a great program to get established.
Thank you, Claire. And on that note, I would like to just bring to the commission's attention a conversation that has started not about an art and humanities flag, but about the city flag and the city emblem. Because in some ways it's somewhat related. There has been a city council request that these be revisited and reimagined. And public affairs staff reached out to me, and they're just formulating a proposal to to the city manager. So nothing is decided and nothing is set, but this was the conversation. And it was about not hiring a $60,000 designer to, redo these things. But it was about doing a community input process, including school children, submitting ideas, and this is all run by public affairs, not run by, BAS staff. But they would also take like children's ideas and then elevate the design with the designers from within the city staff. What they were calling to ask me about was, would BPAC serve as the jury? And did we think that was a good idea? And I said, as a second level, like on all our projects, yes, but the first level should be a panel that is broader than BPAC, and include the Indigenous Commission, the Commission on Diversity Awareness, I said you needed a much larger panel, and we also talked about there being ultimately like 3 to 5 options that would then go through BPAC and then be recommended ultimately to City Council to choose. And City Council would be the final choice. So the public affairs gentleman who called me thought those were all great ideas. He's still formulating the process, and because he's contacting other cities and see how there are other cities that have done this very broad input process and had students, input. So this is the emblem, and this is the city flag. So that process is potentially going to take shape. Not sure, but since you had this item on, and just 2 weeks ago I was called by Chris Rhodes in Public Affairs, I thought it would be a nice time to inform you that that is possibly coming our way, both as 2 members of BPAC being on this jury and potentially us being involved in recommending options to City Council. So you can ask, I don't have a lot of answers to the questions. I was just asked for my input and I gave it, and I just wanted to inform you about it because there's a relationship, between your proposal, Commissioner Garcia, and then what is coming up, which, is the entire city symbols. And I don't really know if it's going to go
I mean, something will be presented to city council because it was a request, but I'm not sure ultimately what upper management will decide is feasible.
They don't like the deer in the fence thing?
You mean the invasive species?
Some people think a deer looks like a dog. We've heard that. But that's like.
Those are from the transplants.
I just like how vintage our current logo is.
It is very vintage.
I hope I get something that has it on there.
You want a spaceship landing over Sedona?
I guess the question I would ask is why was the professional design firm eliminated as an option for something that's significant? Cost. I mean, then why are we doing it? I mean, that would be the question I have is, you know, we hire professionals for a lot of things, and for some reason in aesthetics, like we just disregard years of training, you know, and years of understanding community response and years of public participation management and all of the things that aesthetic professionals bring to these projects.
I know you.
Yeah.
And this is not.
I just want to say it out loud.
Yes.
I just want to say it out loud and say that, you know, this is our community's representation to the rest of the planet. And it can certainly and should certainly have community input. But there is a reason why people are really good at this and create things that are really meaningful for a community that address a lot of things. And I mean, we're gonna end up with a Bodie McBoat face, 50%. And that's an issue when you don't have professional guidance for community input.
And I feel that too, but I'm also supportive of the professionals.
Yeah, but professionals have to know, like, okay, does it reproduce digitally?
Right.
Does it work on the press? Like, what,
No, I
you
do
know.
understand that, but
Yeah.
there is a level that they're gonna take the images and then turn that
Understood.
over to professionals.
I just want to say it out loud.
But I will carry your comments back to public affairs. I'll carry all comments back to public affairs.
Anyway, no, I understand.
And
the
we're not
desire.
spending money on this? It's not coming out of EPAC's
No.
budget?
Nobody's asking us for budget.
Well, shoot, I'll sit on a panel, I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to sit on a panel, and we've got multiple aesthetic professionals on this, on BPAC and
A
anything
couple of
that they're.
professionals too.
Yes, we've got our professionals. We can have a professional and a professional.
Yeah.
So, all right. No more
Anthony,
discussion on that?
I think the idea of highlighting the arts is great. I like the idea of rather than October, having it be in tandem with Arctics in May.
So, okay, anything else on that one? All right, well, are there any, we'll move on to item I, to from items, city to staff? None from? None? I have no to from items. City council liaison, done, anything? No additional to from items from the commission?
Next time.
Okay. And then request for future agenda items? That'll require a vote from 2 commissioners.
I just wanted to have a discussion about, we had our first meeting since COVID in the council chambers. And I just wanted to have a brief discussion on how people felt about that.
We're gonna have a vote next month.
Oh, okay, cool. So that'll be part of the discussion.
Yes, we want
Excellent.
to,
Thank you very
yes.
much.
Cool, thank you. If that's all, then item J, time date for the upcoming meeting, Monday, October 9th, 4 p.m. It'll be hybrid and located here in the staff conference room. And then moving on to item K, adjournment.
The best part.
Thank you all. Thank you.
That was a lot of stuff to cover.
Yeah.
We had 2 big discussion items right up front.
The budget retreat,
We haven't got a date set yet.
the next month we get to go have fun.
There's been a lot
See
of
y'all next time.